Hi everyone. So finally, let's talk about commands. And I'd say that this is the most important part of Tinkercad. So let's dive right in. Last time I talked about holes and how they're, or not why they're important. We'll be getting into that right now. So let's say I take a hole in a solid shape, and if I were to theoretically combine these, you can imagine that this hole would erase whatever is overlapped with the solid shape, right? And that's what the group command does. So I'm gonna hold left click, click and drag, left click, and you can see that two of my shapes are highlighted, and I have access to this guy, group. Command G if you're a typer. I'm gonna release a document where all these shortcuts, the I'll have the shortcuts for all of these like tools and commands for you to use. So anyhow, I click this, and then you can see that that space is sort of taken away. I can also do this with two solids, and instead of taking them away, we'll just add them together. Or I can just do it with two holes, which by itself isn't really that useful. But if I have like a solid, let's do something like that, right? Solid. And then I combine them. See, that's what you'll get. So holes aren't really all that useful by themselves unless it's combined with a solid. Let's just go all the way back. All right. One thing I do want to point out, actually, before we get there, if you group, um, see how like these aren't touching, but still grouped. Grouped objects will be seen as one entity in Tinkercad. So, if I do the dilation or change the dimensions, it will change them as if this entire thing was one object. If I rotate two, right, it's like Tinkercad sees it as one. One more thing is that, whoops, I went too far. But no, we're good now. One more thing is that it's no longer a basic shape, meaning that you can't edit any parameters here. So I recommend before you group objects, make sure that you have all your parameters adjusted, or, if you forget or you don't like what you see, you can always just ungroup this button here, or just undo immediately after you group. And then, yeah, so if you don't like what you see, just, just adjust the thing, adjust parameters, and then you can group them. Speaking of undo and all of that, that's what these are here. This is undo, and then redo, Command Z and Command Y. Copy and paste your good two best friends over here. There's buttons for them, but I can't imagine why you would want to use the buttons over the keyboard commands. I just find them much more intuitive. And then this is duplicate, which is Command D, which essentially does both copy and paste at once. If I just did Control D for PC users, right? Then now here's another one. Control D again, get more. And then here's delete, which is just delete or backspace. So we covered this left side. Oh, this eyeball here, if you have these notes, I think we covered them. If you have these notes, want to type something to yourself, you can just click this and then they're gone. So if you do find yourself using a lot of notes, then that might be useful to you. So your visual, real estate isn't really it can be more free. This is for hidden shapes that, as we discussed, group, ungroup, align. Okay, align is important. It's important for symmetric things. Let's say I take this guy. I make whoops, make 4 copies. This one. Actually, let's use mirror to do this. So I'm gonna make um, one more copy, right? So I'm going for a cross and an X. So whoops, that's the wrong. Let me just undo the wrong axis, right? So there are my cross pieces, and then let me get my X. Let me move. Let's do that. Here's what mirror does. The shape's highlighted right now. I click mirror or M, and you can see it sort of reflects it. So wherever the arrow is, imagine like the midpoint. Like let's say I'm right here. Where my cursor is right now, imagine there's an imaginary plane and just reflects it over. Do keep in mind that this does not duplicate. So whatever source material you're using, it will rotate that. So you do have to make a duplicate before or after. No, before. And then here you get your pieces. Let's say, so now I'm gonna use a line command. Let's say, I want to cross, but my pieces are not so organized, or I'm just too lazy to sort of put these in all nice and pretty. So this is where the line command comes in. Click and hold with left click. Get all your shapes highlighted. You see I have 5 here. Align, that's L. And you'll see these black dots. If I highlight over, you can see what the black dots sort of do. And since I want my cross to be symmetric about the sphere, I'm gonna want to click the ones in the center. So and the X and the Y. The Z is already symmetric, so we don't need to worry about that. If it was like, sure, let's move this up. It was like that. Now you can see it's sort of like it wants to move everything into the middle. So we'll do that. And then this, you can see how it's like, oh, okay. Now it's symmetric about this Z and then the X, but now it's like not symmetric here yet. So that's why there's this black dot. And then voila. And then, you could group this. Actually, I think holes would be interesting. Instead of like, since you have to click and drag, you don't want the sphere, right? So instead of doing these individually, making these holes individually, you can hold shift and click. So 1, 2, bam, they're both highlighted. Let me just undo everything. So hold shift, click, like this, bam, all 4 highlighted. Or if you highlight everything and then shift click the circle, it will undo that. So just make them holes and then group and let's see what we get. It looks like an orange. Let's just make it orange. Look at that. If we all go all the way back, right, the line, like if you click the corners, you can see what it does. It's kind of like, let's see, click the corner. Whoops. If you like click all the corners of one thing, it's sort of like where my cursor's highlighting right now, this red, it it will make it will make everything symmetric about like that diagonal line. Whoops, let me go back. If I were to cut it diagonally like this way, or I guess the camera's inverted, so like this way, I get 2 even pieces. So yeah, it's all the commands. Align and mirror are really helpful if you want something symmetric, like here, what I did. This is really good. Mm, let's see. If I wanted like something this way, I showed you guys an example that I like to exercise in class. Actually, let's duplicate this, and then let's Right, can't rotate. So let's rotate this. One thing to note though, a line, it's like, since there's only so many black dots, there's only like 3 in each axis. In that one exercise I showed you, if you want a design like this, if you use those black dots, it's not going to help you. Click it here, it's all going to go in the center. Click it in one of these corners, they're all going to go in one of the corners. If you want like, evenly spaced sort of thirds, you're going to have to drag them yourself, but you can of course do it, you can of course adjust them into other planes like that. Like let me go back, undo. So it's like, actually redo that. It's like, if it's up, if this is up, that's like down. And you see how like, let's do that. If if I do this, if I do this, now they're all like perfect. But in this, it turned out that this way, it turned out that this happened to be perfect this way. If it was like this, this is not going to help me. Just like word of caution if you want like thirds, or maybe like something like, maybe you want something like this. The line is not going to help you there. Other than like the other two axes, you're going to have to drag everything else. Actually, let's just like, just for fun, let's see what we get when we group this. Make these holes first. Group. Look at that. Also, one more thing is there's a lot of shapes to work with here, right? So you could get a lot of different designs. Let's say I do like this, right? Move him up. I recommend you just explore with many shapes as you can. Like this looks like what? It would be like a snow thing. Well, make it blue. Or if I just make this a hole and I take it away, kind of like, it's like a pedestal or like something should go here. But yeah, so I think that covers everything that will be useful to you guys. So if you have any questions, let me know.